Now that we understand face and politeness theory, we want to shift gears slightly and talk about how we use online mediums to broaden or create or share our face with other people. You might think that a lot of it is similar, and it is very similar to how we do it in face-to-face settings. But there are some key differences with online self-presentation that makes our communication slightly different when we go online. So how is virtual different than face-to-face when it comes to building our face or the way we want other people to see us? The first is that often virtual communication is anonymous. Not all the time, and typically not when you work in teams, but a lot of the mass communication that occurs anonymously, where you can go and post comments on sites without people knowing who you are. You can respond to things. A lot of people, even on TikTok and these other popular social media sites, are famous TikTokers who just cover their face or blur their face so people can't see them. So it's sort of interesting. It provides a way for people to build a part of their identity without necessarily letting other people know that that part of their identity is connecting to them. The other thing that's interesting here is the amount of information we can collect about someone before we actually meet them. Have you ever been set up on a date with somebody or been asked to meet someone new, and before you went to meet them, you stalked their social media account? This is building your perception of their face before you even meet them. And people are doing the same thing to you. So often before our first encounter with someone, they already know quite a bit about us. And that might change the way they perceive us. Online mediums also offer more control. We sort of adapt and figure out how we want people to perceive us. I know back when Facebook came out, back when I was in high school, we spent a lot of time sitting at the computer thinking, how do I want people to see me? And I like to be seen as maybe an athletic person, so I'd put my soccer photos up there or hiking pictures so that people saw this athletic, fun, outgoing person. And maybe there were some parts of me I didn't want them to see, and so I didn't put pictures related to that on my Facebook account. So often online shows more positive perceptions of people than is reality. But the overall concept is similar, that we all have this desired face, this way we want people to see us, and we work to help people see us that certain way. The other big difference is that our nonverbals are different. Often we can't see immediate reactions to people. Chronemics is important. How much time do we take before we respond to messages? All of those could be face-threatening acts. Think about if you text somebody and ask them to come over and they don't respond. That's a face-threatening act there. So all this might be slightly different when we use computer-mediated communication. To help us understand this further, we're going to talk real quickly about the self-presentation model. This is a model that suggests that there are two components for how people choose to portray themselves. The first thing that occurs is that individuals go through this motivational process. This is they gain motivation to control how other people see them. As we talked about before, some people are really motivated to control how people see them, and other people maybe don't care that much. Based off of our motivation, we then engage in this construction process, this process of creating or implementing our desired impression or face. This motivational process occurs when we have some sort of desire to create an image that we think will help us accomplish some specific goal. So take for a second to think about what are some of the things that motivate you to manage the way people see you online. Maybe it's as simple as wanting to fit in. Maybe you're trying to find a romantic partner, and so you create a persona on a dating app. Maybe you just want to be appearing competent. Maybe you're posting on a job site, trying to find a job. So our goals often create motivation for us to develop a certain identity online. As these goals become more important to us, we also therefore have more desire to manage how people perceive us. One big factor here in motivation is whether or not we're communicating with people that we expect to see in real life. For example, if I'm in a chat room and I have no anticipation of ever meeting these people face to face, I'm probably going to be less likely to care how they see me. But if I am in a chat room with people that I think I might meet someday, I'm going to be more concerned with how I present myself. So we're more motivated to manage impressions when we are more likely to meet in person. And the more information is public, so if we're going to share something, more people are going to be able to see it, then we're more likely to manage those impressions. This leads us to the construction process. One thing that we have to realize is that people make conscious or at least semi-conscious decisions about how they want to manage their face. You have probably done this, where you have thought, I want people to see me a certain way, so I'm going to take this Instagram picture so that people see me that way. So the first thing we do is decide what we want our impression to be. How do we want people to see us? We consider, how do we see ourselves? We also consider, how do we think people in this community want me to be seen? And we sort of find a balance between the two. So 3 things we consider is, what is our actual self? What is our ideal self? And what is our ought self? In simple terms, imagine that right now you are a B student. Your actual self is a B student. Your ideal self might be that you think you should be working hard enough to get an A in this class. So ideally, you'd be an A student. And the ought self might actually be that you are a C student and that the teacher has been grading really leniently, right? So the 3 might be different. You might think about it in a more realistic world. Or maybe your actual self is that you are kind to people, but you don't go out of your way to help people. The ideal self would be somebody who is always going out of their way to help other people. And the ought self, what you think you at least ought to do, is go out of the way to help people when you don't have the other things that you yourself need to be doing. So we have these 3 versions of ourselves that are sometimes at pull with one another. And then we implement this impression. So you might be choosing, what medium would help me portray this? What content should I put on this medium that would help me portray this desired public image? A couple of additional ways that this is different online than it is face-to-face. One thing that's interesting in this process of creating or managing this self online is that we can edit it. How many times have you posted something on social media and decided later on that you didn't like it, so you went back and deleted that post? So in essence, you're changing your face after the fact. The other thing that's interesting is the synchronicity of these interactions. When we send a message, we don't always get a message back. We can also go back and view old identities. Have you ever started dating someone new and gone back on their Facebook or their Instagram and saw what they were like before they started dating you? And the other thing is that it allows us to reallocate our cognitive sources. In face-to-face interactions, our minds are trying to juggle many different things. Part of it is our face needs, but a lot of it is other things going on. However, when it comes to virtual face management or creating these online self-presentations, we often can sit down and be alone while we're doing them and devote 100% of our cognition efforts to creating this identity, which makes us think about ourselves slightly different than we would if we never had that opportunity.